This is the last layer of for the final. So the first one was to do the drawing in pencil. So to grid your your drawing. Put a grid on it, either using squares or triangles. But grid it, grid your paper, transfer your drawing onto your larger paper. Do that in pencil, erase all the grid lines, and then the last layer was to do the ink wash. So this is kind of like an underpainting of how the final is going to look. And there was a question too, what happens for the highlights? Like, do you just leave the white of the paper, or should you use like something like white paint or a white pen? So the answer to that is try to leave the paper, but if it ends up happening that your ink, since it's kind of loose and it's watery, if you kind of fill in more than you intended to, you could use your gel pen or your paint to pull some of the highlights back out. And so I would do that before I work with the charcoal, because once the charcoal's down, then it's gonna mix with the white. It's dusty, so it could keep the gel pen from making any marks. It'll mix with the white paint, so you'll get gray instead of white. So I would do whatever highlights you want to put in. I would do that first before I go in with the charcoal. So what I can do is, like, say in the eye, I want to shape this highlight a little bit more. Maybe add some light edges to these. Highlight on the nose. And the reason why you do this first too is because you could always erase the charcoal if it goes over these white parts, but you won't be able to go the other way. So anywhere I see where my highlights kind of got grayed out, I'll go in and put some of these light marks in. So it kind of helps a lot with the folds in the forehead there. Helps on edges. And if you want them to kind of blend, you could put it in kind of using hatching or cross-hatching techniques. So it doesn't have to be like just a solid white. It could be like a grayed out one, right? So like that, this edge kind of comes out too much. I'll put some white over it to kind of push it back. Like edges that may have bled over too much, I could sharpen up again using this. Yeah. So I don't need to do a whole lot, but that little bit I think helps. All right, so then the next thing you do is do the compressed charcoal. And for this, you'll use probably your eraser. Let me see. There's some other stuff here. Here it is. My kneaded eraser. So I use that guy. And I had a blending stump. You use, oh, here it is. and you can use your blending stump. So tools you use: blending stump, charcoal, bead eraser for softer highlights, white eraser for cleaner highlights. So this last layer is really just kind of rendering and smoothing things out and getting things darker. So maybe here. So the charcoal is going to be darker than the ink, so you can kind of punch up all the chords of your shadows. And then you could also kind of get the nice blend on things too. This one I probably won't use the blending stump on this guy. And so anywhere where the shadows need better transition, that's probably where you can start in with the charcoal. You can also use vine charcoal if you need like more subtle shadows. But I'm gonna start the charcoal in like at the darkest spots and then sort of blend them over into the rest of the areas. And so for some things, it'll look better to use the ink, just kind of leave it as it is. And other parts, you'll have to hit with the charcoal. Like for the teeth, since they're so, like the spaces in between the teeth are so thin, I'm just gonna use the ink. I'm not gonna try and put charcoal in there because it'll be too dark and it'll bulk them up and make them too thick. So, but then for like these values around the mouth, where they kind of blend over a little softer, right? I'll use a charcoal for that. Has more of a feeling of light on the skin. Right, and I get those soft blends. Even like these bold shadows around the nose. They can have like a darker, even though it's mostly dark, it can have like a core of it where it's like really dark with the charcoal, and then I could blend out from there. So I could do this, like the bridge, and then just pull it into this dark space that's this shadow here. So the point of this assignment is to use your tools, you know, that have the different qualities just for what they are. So for certain things you'll use ink, certain things you use charcoal. So it's to show like an understanding of light and shadow, but also an understanding of materials and what the materials can do for you. So sometimes you need the blending stump to make things smooth, right? Sometimes you need an eraser to clean things up a little. Sometimes you want the washiness and maybe the preciseness of the ink or the gel pen. But you can see once you go in with this layer, it makes everything like a little more three-dimensional. And this whole shirt is kind of darker in this corner and gets lighter as it moves down. So I'm going to put that in and maybe use my finger to get the light to move pretty gradually. And these shadows need a little bit of blending off the edge. So I'll put the charcoal down. So that's something I won't be able to get with the ink, right? Because it just gives you an edge, but this way I get like a soft blend. So it feels like reflected light coming in from this way. Whereas this side I want to keep the ink because I want it to be sharp on this side. So even this little thing in the background, a little blending off of that shadow. And you see how that kind of spread out a little too much at this side? I could just use my eraser, kind of shape that and clean that up. Same thing with this little guy. Put a little, maybe use this. Or the kneaded eraser just to lift off a little bit. So these more subtle shadows, I use the blending stump. All right, so I'm getting close to the end there. So when you're done with everything, spray your drawing down so it stays and doesn't smear. And then make sure you spray outdoors, right? Because that spray is pretty strong. And usually what I would do when I spray it with the fixative, I would do one coat going horizontal, another coat going vertical, let it dry, and then do it again. Another coat going horizontal, another coat going vertical, just to make sure I hit everything. But yeah, this layer doesn't really, I don't feel like takes as long as the other ones because you're kind of just finishing up. You're just rendering and making everything look three-dimensional and kind of just really just working on the light. So it'll be up to you, like whether you want more of your picture to be charcoal or more of it to be ink. But definitely do the ink wash first and the charcoal last. It won't work the other way because, and then also you don't want to rush it. So make sure your ink is dry. So I would say do it. If you're doing it all the same day, let it dry for like maybe an hour. But make sure it's completely dry before you do the charcoal, because otherwise you'll ruin your paper using dry charcoal on wet paper.